discussion because it's IWL season and we need to discuss, right? And for the first time, you know, there are two panelists here who've trained a player who's now playing in the IWL. Our very own Razia Khan, 2005 born, has finally registered for Hops. She's not obviously got into a starting lineup, but these are early days. Like things will happen. We expect that, like the bull-headed person she is, she will bulldoze her way into every starting lineup that she has. And yeah, having said that, let me also introduce a very, very special guest that we have. We have Randeep Baruah, who used to head up the women's football and academy project at Odisha FC. Welcome, Randeep.
Thank you, Arka Abreshmina. Thanks very much for having me.
And as usual, we have the effervescent Abreshmina Sayeed Quadri, somebody who's covered women's football in every nook and cranny of the country, somebody who's broken the biggest story to come out of, and all of us know what that story is. We don't want to revisit the story, right? It's a grim reminder, but yes, Abreshmina, welcome back to Injury Time.
Thank you. Really good to be here. And I'm sorry, just a disclaimer, I'm going to be eating here because I've just come back from office and I'm very hungry.
Yes.
Yes,
Go for it. Go for it.
yes, yes. So, without wasting much time, Randeep, it seems like this is finally the year that, at least from what I've seen in Gokulam's first two games, right? You should never rule them out. You should never rule somebody like an Anthony out because he's a shrewd man. Like we've seen it time and again, right? But it does seem like Odisha FC a major hand, upper hand, because Indumati went there, right? And she's somebody I rate very highly, right? Because as on date, and I know because with injury issues and everything, Bala used to be the goat. She still is, but now if you're speaking about outfield players, I think the conversation has to be Manisha and Indumati. So, do you think finally this is finally the year that Gokulam FC are dethroned?
I have my fingers crossed. We play them tomorrow in any case. But listen, I think it's last year we had a very good team. This year, again, it's a good team. There's a lot of players there from last year's batch, which was the whole point of us having this whole continuous program run
Continuity.
for the
Hmm.
players. So there is a bit of continuity, and you'll have all the players there again. Either on the bench or on the pitch.
Hmm.
There's been some strong additions, and I think I was one of the first ones when Indu missed out on the AFF Women's Player of the Year this year. With all due respect
Hmm.
to the other player who won it and whom I love as well,
Hmm.
but I thought last year Indu was spectacular.
Yeah.
Like in every tournament that she played, she was. So she is a very special player. We hope that she brings all of that to OFC. I know I'm not with the club anymore, and I still keep saying weep. So pardon me. But the truth is that I think the right areas have been strengthened, and of course, we are very grateful to Bala for everything she brought to the club at that point of time, and she was our top scorer at the end of the campaign, which
Hmm.
again I would have hoped had lasted a bit longer.
Hmm.
So tomorrow I meet my friend Anthony, but this time on the opposite side, on the stands. And
Huh.
look, I know what you were saying about Anthony. Anthony's a really good coach.
Hmm.
But both of them, they're both tactically very good. They have good players in their in their sides, and anybody can step up for anyone right now. I think the narrowing down of the squads also has been smart. The squad selections have been very shrewd. The players that have come in, like Anju's gone to Gokulam,
Hmm.
and Indu's come this side. So we now there's Sanju on the left. Last year our left was very weak, and
Hmm.
uh, as much as we tried to
Hmm.
strengthen it at that point of time, it didn't work.
Hmm.
So now we have Sanju and Astam as well over there, and I think there is a good mix again of players, so it should be a very interesting match tomorrow. And as far as Gokulam are concerned, I wouldn't count any of the teams out. Honestly, it's ultimately you can have the best players, you can have the best squads, but football comes down to what happens on the day. You've seen it, I've seen it, we've all
Hmm.
experience it in our lives. You just never know. So
Hmm.
I think it would be foolish, and I doubt anyone would want to rule out any of the teams.
Hmm.
Kickstart looks strong so far. We just
Hmm.
2 games in, yeah, but
Hmm.
they look strong. Sethu looks strong as well, and these are clubs that have been around now
Hmm.
for a while, involved in women's football.
Hmm.
OFC is just into its second year,
Hmm.
so it's too early to speak of title talk. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, yes, of course, I would definitely hope for Orissa to win. And it's not about getting anything back on anyone, but it's just about
Hmm.
hoping that the continuity that we've tried to
Hmm.
build over the last 2 years
Hmm.
finds fruition in some form.
Of
So
course.
yeah, let's see.
Yeah. Also, Randeep, what I've seen, and that's why we are different from fans. Right? We're an integral part of the ecosystem. We don't think like fans, but because I see this very often on Twitter, especially when the Indian women's team suffers a hard loss, is that the first clamor that comes up is that, oh, please force ISL teams to start women's teams, right?
Mm,
In the
mm,
absence of a viable ecosystem, or in the absence of an ecosystem where women are not playing, let's say 9 months a year, or forget 9 months, even the men aren't playing for 9 months, right? Even let's say 6 months or 5 months, is it
mm.
really I mean, is it really fair to really handcuff the ISL clubs and say, oh, listen, you have to start women's teams, or even for licensing criteria for that matter? Is it a fair ask?
Look, I can't decide on the fairness of it. Okay, I'll be honest with you. But what I can tell you is that it's not easy for ISL clubs to maintain multiple teams. They're already investing a lot of money with absolutely zero returns. And people think, "Are women's team hai, players khareed lo, team banao, khel ke aao." It's not how it works. I'm very impressed with what obviously Gokulam, who've been around for a while, have slowly started building up. They've won their titles. Now they're focusing on promoting youth. They're promoting a bunch of teams. They have, I think,
Three
5 teams
teams.
now.
Okay,
No,
three.
3 teams. I'm talking about the girls, huh? So they
Hmm.
have 3 teams, seniors and then the youth teams, and then they also are investing on university teams and college school teams.
Yeah.
So look at, they're building that ecosystem
Hmm.
around them, which is okay. But it's not to say that the owners don't lose money. Nobody's making money in Indian football. We know that. Yeah, we're losing bleeding money left, right, and center.
Hmm.
And but are we getting that quality? Now
Hmm.
what I see happening here is, in a way, I'm quite, the, the teams having come down to 8. Unfortunate for Eastern, of course, but
Hmm.
that those are obviously beyond our control. But having said that, if there were 8 teams, you're narrowing it down to more quality. I think you or someone else tweeted that as well. Maybe
Hmm.
Shaggy or someone tweeted that.
Hmm.
We're seeing more quality.
Hmm.
Uh, and that is important, because what that's going to do is give
Hmm.
other clubs and other aspiring clubs, or ISL clubs even included, the aspiration to be a part of this tournament,
Hmm.
and give women the opportunity to and focus more over there with good coaches, good infrastructure, training facilities, and medical facilities, all of that stuff.
Hmm.
And it's important because you don't want these aspects of the game, women's football reserve team,
Hmm.
youth teams, to be a secondary tertiary thought, and everything is focused on the first thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And but to balance that, you have to have really really deep pockets,
Yeah.
and like you said, the ecosystem has to support you.
Yeah.
I think the ecosystem is finally at a stage where it's going to grow into that in the
Hmm.
next 2 3 years, once there's relegation promotion as well from 25
Hmm.
26. So
Hmm.
it's going to give teams the the sort of sorry the mm,
Hmm.
bait to get into women's football and
Hmm.
take it up seriously.
Hmm.
uh, Last year I was speaking to someone and I said, I think we are very closer with the women's team
Hmm.
to qualify for a World Cup than the men's.
Hmm.
And he was like, nobody, we aren't. We really haven't. We really aren't. Watch some more. And then I watched this year's World Cup and I was like, yeah, we actually aren't.
We
We
aren't.
actually are still
We
far
are.
away. We are closer than the boys, for sure. We're closer than the boys, but even so, the gap is a lot. Okay, so
Hmm.
I think if you really want to take women's football seriously, start with the overheads, the infrastructural setup first. Uspe dhyan do, uspe pehle kharcha karo, then you buy the players. Because when
Hmm.
you buy the players, you're not buying the players just because they're big players. You're buying the players to win, right? What is the ultimate objective of creating a football team? To win. But if the team is all over the place, then you're not going to have players with the morale, with the mentality, or with the ambition to be a part of it, to be winning. So I think if the league gets serious, which I think it will, the
Hmm.
home and away format is great, but again, it's a massive expense on a
Yes,
lot of
it is.
clubs.
It is.
It is. Trust me, and plus we are doing this over holiday season,
Hmm.
right? So, for example, you're traveling
Hmm.
during the winter months to
Hmm.
Goa, to Calicut,
Hmm.
to Delhi even, yeah, or to Bangalore, it's expensive.
Hmm.
Likewise, to come into Orissa, because some places do not have a direct flight. You have to
Hmm.
fly in through others. So that hotels,
Hmm.
and then the transportation, the pani and on ice and everything on the pitch inside. So these are expenses that
Hmm.
actually add up. And on top of that, of course, today you want to pay players a decent amount of money, and I'm always about paying players
Hmm.
a decent amount of money,
Hmm.
because what else do they have to go back to?
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So once this ecosystem grows, it will, and clubs do get invested into it.
Hmm.
This, it's pointless clamoring for the ISL clubs and saying the AFC license criteria fulfill karo, ye
Hmm.
karo, wo karo. Grow it.
Hmm.
Let the league grow it. Let the federation grow it. See how it pans out.
Hmm.
We're still not being broadcast anyways. The live stream on YouTube and their channel, right?
Hmm.
So where are we going to get the sponsors from? Who are you going to ask for sponsorships? Local sponsors also are like, हाँ ठीक है. With we still have to build the communities around the women's team, and every year the teams are changing. So there's a lot of components that will take time for the dust to settle before we can have a really structured sort of program going forward for women's football. So before that, I think it should be open for
Hmm.
whoever wants, get into it. But when you get into it, do it seriously. Simple as
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean, I agree with whatever you're saying, and
Really well put.
yes,
Honestly.
excellent. Yes, as expected.
Thank you. I spoke too much, and this is water. Huh? I might just tell you. I know it's evening and people might have ideas, but I so
Um, hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
uh, and Akshata,
Yeah,
am I back?
yeah, yeah. Your
Now,
band, yeah, your net seems patchy, but yeah, you're back. Uh,
No, no, it can't be me. I'm in Orissa. Everything is top notch over here. It can't be me. Hang on a second.
right,
One second.
yeah. But as expected, Randeep, very, 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 what do you say, well thought out answer, and I think a very in depth answer. And just to add some more context, or just to give some anecdotes, India's socio-cultural makeup also has a certain limitations placed on women's football. For example, there's this incredible academy from Manipur, right? They are the Subroto Cup champions for the boys from Manipur.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, when I visited them in 2018, an incredible community club, like superb, like they built everything by scratch from hand, right? When I visited them in 2019, they said, no, we're just starting a women's program. We want to do with the women's program what we did with the men, right? And COVID hit, and the first thing to be shelved was the women's program,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I said, like, guys, this is not really not expected, but I understand. I
Hmm.
understand. I can't
Hmm.
I can't enforce my privilege onto you.
Yeah.
I can't speak from a
Right.
position of privilege. I can't speak from a position in the ivory tower. I understand there are on ground difficulties. When I spoke to Tete Hamar, I said, Tete, you've done such a fantastic job with the men's, but when it comes to
Hmm.
women's, you have absolute, because you have culture. You have what a lot of other states die for. You have
Yeah.
culture, but you have not. And that's why I love Tete, because he's one of the most honest men in Indian football.
Yeah.
Tete said, we are failures when it comes to women's game. He was very upfront. He was very brutal about his own shortcoming. He said, and when they reached the semi-finals, they had a fantastic crop of players. But their undoing
Mm.
was that they were not physically conditioned as opposed to an Odisha or a Manipur, that they were not playing week in, week out. But you could see glimpses of what they bought to, like they bought the technicality. They have the same, what do you say? They have the same skill set that their male counterparts have. And honestly, I think Manipur, Mizoram, for example, is yet untapped when it comes to women's football. I
Yeah.
really hope that they can do something, right? Because we've
Mm.
seen how the men's game has grown over the last 10 years. It's nuts. It's just exploded there.
Mm.
So I really hope Mizoram, right? I know that even the northeastern states haven't taken it as seriously, except for example, except Manipur, obviously. But
Yeah.
when I go to a Meghalaya, I know that Garhwal FC has now set up, BBFS has set up its academy there. A lot of girls are coming from there. My friend
Yeah.
Fila is in the association there. They're also trying to push a lot of
Our
women's
friend
football.
Fila.
Our friend Fila, right? Our very common dear friend Fila. Shout out to Filarima,
Yeah.
somebody who's very passionate about the game and making a change in Meghalaya also.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of
Yes.
these anecdotal, and just one more anecdote before I give the question to Abreshmina. There was a women's team player, national team player this year. She had got an offer from Europe, but then she got married this year, and the parents-in-law, essentially said, "Nothing doing. We want you to quit football and you know, essentially become a baby making machine." But then she pushed back. She didn't go to Europe. I, dreams were squashed. She is playing in the IWL, but you know, like it's all a case of what could have been, right? So
Mm.
uh, Indian women's football still faces challenge, and I'm coming to Abreshmin also. Abreshmin, a very basic question. Randeep da mentioned about the player pool also, right? Because with it's 7 teams, it's more, seems like there is a obviously a jump in standard, because we've seen this at Ludhiana, we've seen this in Shillong also, we've seen this
Yeah.
across editions of IWL, that there is a huge gulf between, let's say, the top 4 5 and the rest, right? Now we are hearing that IWL 2, at least as of what the latest information we have, could be 8 plus 8, the bottom 8 from last time, and 8 state champions, including our very own Darwal FC. Abreshma, do you think 16 plus 7 teams, ये जो 23 टीम्स के इतना प्लेयर पूल है इंडिया में, इतना क्वालिटी है, या मतलब we are still playing catch up when it comes to that?
No, we're definitely playing catch up. I don't think if you look at 23 teams, it's like a lot. The player pool required for 23 teams is huge.
575 players if I take
Yeah.
25 players per team. Yeah.
So I personally don't think that we have that level of quality, honestly. But I also think if I look at the flip side of it, these many players will get to play. So at some level, when they do get to play at um, that particular competitive level, they do pick up something or the other, and that probably helps. So yes, it's a very small step. It's not going to yield result today, and it's not even going to show in their skill set like today. But if this keeps happening, yes, more and more players are going to get the chance. A lot of times you will see a lot of countries, we can take example of different countries also, where you don't essentially have full-time or professional players, right, playing the sport, but you have people who played just for their passion. So when you require these many players, you will probably teams will also look at having younger players in the IWL, because otherwise we've seen teams trying to go for senior players only and not looking at the younger ones. So probably that gives that kind of exposure to the younger ones also coming in. So yes, overall, I'm definitely, I'm sure there's going to be that gap of quality. Uh, but if you look at it from the development point of view, probably it's a decent effort, and probably in one that in the right direction.
But teams are forced to go for young players because of the huge attrition that happens after the ages of 21, 22, 23, right? Because even with our girls, we've seen
Yeah.
pressure from the parents to stop playing football and, let's say, go and lend an extra helping hand when it comes to bringing the bread home.
Yeah.
We've seen this pressure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, like, all of us know that kind of attrition happens beyond, like, till school level, or maybe the first year of college or so. There are far more girls playing rather than after that. So there's this,
Hmm.
like you mentioned, there's this age gap till about maybe 24 or so,
Hmm.
till
Hmm.
say from 19 to 23, 24,
Hmm.
when most
Hmm.
girls drop out.
Hmm.
So obviously that
Hmm.
shortens the overall pool as well, right? Like, you have a lot of players
Ah,
playing, and then even if you try and nurture them into better players, you never know if they are actually going to end up being professional players. So
hmm.
yeah, I mean, that kind of
Hmm.
thing is obviously existing. So it makes it
Hmm.
even more difficult to develop a pool of players.
Hmm.
But I mean, these are societal things that I think we have to just deal with and go on. I'm not sure
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
really do much about it at this point in time, till our society is at that place where sport is not just a recreational activity, or where
Hmm.
if you can pick up sport professionally as a girl as well, and
Yeah.
where we are at a place where the women of our society don't have to do
Hmm.
essentially be forced to do household jobs, at like be a homemaker and not go out and do whatever they want to do in their professions.
Huh, huh. And we've seen too many anecdotal examples, right, of women dropping out. The 2016 player there, Susmita Malik, stopped playing for a long time, then came back and played for the Railways.
Yeah.
And what a player she was. She's probably still is, right?
Mm.
But those years that she missed really,
Yeah, it
you
hampered
know,
her game also. It hampered her game. Even when she tried to make that comeback,
back, yeah.
I mean, if you talk to her yourself, you'd know that she also felt that
Mm.
she was not at the same level and she could
we
not put in
we
as much as
remember we remember Delhi's number one keeper, Vanshika Rana, and what
yeah,
a keeper she was. She played for Hans when they qualified for the IWL. She was so dominating. Like and that's something you normally don't see in Indian keepers. She was very calm
yeah,
in the box, right? Disappeared overnight. Like essentially had and universities. I have to mention their role in the downfall. The moment they go to universities, the university says choose. You do you want to play league or do you want to play university? You play the league, you lose your scholarship, you lose your seat, you lose your degree. Right?
Can I just say something over here?
Yes. Yes, I saw
So
that
last
smile on your face, and
yeah.
I know you have something
So
to add here.
so last year I kept getting continuous calls from this university where a bunch of our players were signed up for, and
Hmm.
basically this was during OWL, and my condition at that point of time, right?
Oh
With my
yeah,
leg and everything.
running from pillar to post, yeah, and you
Yeah.
broke your
So
leg also.
yes. So I was at my wits' end, and I was just like, listen, they said that, I got a lot of calls from a lot of senior people from here and there as well. And I kept my foot down. I was like, look, I have one thing in my mind, which is that these girls have to play the OWL, because we have to win that to go to the IWL, right? So I said no. I've had, you know, the senior most people at the university called me, and last minute I stopped picking up calls. So I started getting calls from seniors here as well. I put my foot down and I said, do what you have to do. I told the girls also, you want to go and play? Fine. But I'm not going to pay you, first and foremost, which, I was never going to do. But either which ways, I had to scare them as well because I needed them to play and be committed. Otherwise, how else am I going to build a football team? So yes, universities have this thing of saying, no, you do this, or this is gone and that is gone, because yes, they do sign up for scholarships, and but they never go to college or anything like that. Then they are in university as well, and you have a government job as well, and you want to be at a football club. You can't be at three places at the same time. So I think, speaking of from where Abreshmina also spoke about the younger players, and this is what I've been trying to speak to a lot of people as well over here, saying focus on the younger players and direct them towards picking up football, because, like I said, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, this is going to be serious business. It is going to be. If people can't see that, this is the most uh, uh, growth evolution sport in the world right now, women's
Hmm.
football, I'm sorry to say you're not seeing things right. You've got to invest in it, yes, but aram se karo. Take your time and do it, but do it properly. Focus on the younger players. Then you're not going to spend tons of money on player transfer fees. You can fix your infrastructure and your facilities better. You can focus on that, so that players are comfortable and players are settled when they come, and you have a full year long term program, and the government gives you many more options to play competitive football, many more competitions to play. So yeah, I think yes, the universities, look, they also have the now. Oh, I know we're gonna go into a universities football league and stuff like that. So that's gonna be interesting, no? A
Hmm.
universities league, that'll be interesting.
Huh. And I think I love Japan because all of it is integrated. The
Yep.
high schools, the universities, everybody is integrated into one system. You want to
Yes.
play, you're part of the system, right? You're not separate piece of the puzzle. You're all part of the same system, right? Whether you enter the fifth tier, the third tier, or the first tier, right?
Yeah.
I think this integration is very, very, very important.
It's very
Um,
key.
but I also understand why
Sorry.
universities want to their own piece of silverware, because they want to, or whoever the administrator there wants to prove to the malik or the owner there, saying, listen, you've given sports quota places and you've not charged them for their seats, it's fine, but this is the return. Because, and you remember Saloni Randeep, she went to as part of the LPU team this year in the North Zone. They finished finalists, but then again it hampered her chance of getting into an IWL team because there were teams going for trials, and
Mm.
obviously, right. So the point is, they all have to be integrated. I
Mm.
understand university is looking for university glory,
Yeah.
right? But can they be?
And
Sorry, go on.
admissions. And admissions.
and, and admissions, right? But can they be, what do you say, spoken to look beyond just university glory? For example, India's never won the university games. That we
Mm.
know there is a university
Yeah,
football
of course. Yeah.
world thing that happens, right? India's never won it,
Mm.
right? So can we can we have a discussion where all the stakeholders sit at one table and look at the bigger picture?
I
I
think it
also
comes
think,
down to.
sorry, go on,
Sorry.
Sorry,
Randeep.
sorry, Abreshmina. Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, this is where the thing that we've been speaking about since years, which is the calendar, comes into place. Like,
Hmm.
the IWL and the university games going on at the same time is not good for anyone. It doesn't work for the universities, it doesn't work for the players, it doesn't work for the AFF. So if you
Hmm.
have a set calendar and everyone is aware of when each competition is going to happen, everybody just plans better. It's pretty much as simple as that. I mean, and
Hmm.
I think that that is one place where you can instantly make an impact. Like, there are
Hmm.
processes that obviously take time, right? Like in terms of development. But if you set this thing in stone today, you will see the
Hmm.
difference in terms of the structure of women's football that is there in India.
Okay. Mandeep, though?
No, I think what Abreshmina said is right, but also see, uh, as we go into professionalizing women's football or professionalizing any aspect of a sport,
Hmm.
a s-
Hmm.
when you professionalize it, we are still looking at 17, 18-year-old kids. So you can't 18, of course, you can pay them onwards and all of that stuff. That's going to
Hmm.
happen. But then how there you need to expand on your local sort of
Hmm. Okay.
competition, and players are being looked at more seriously, and clubs move onto an OWL club or an IWL club when the season is also over. And of course, the the calendar has to be set out right from the start. So this year, one of the good things that they did was
Hmm.
they did give us a calendar much earlier on, so we could plan and prepare better. But of course, nothing was finalized till much later in any case. And
Hmm.
it always keeps jumbling up with the national team commitments. So teams don't really get time to practice together. And
Hmm.
you look at any of the players coming back, it's not their fault, it's not the club's fault also, but it's just that it's so crunched up
Hmm.
Right now, games through Christmas to actually practice and get the team to gel. So yeah,
Hmm.
the whole thing about integrating everything, which I understand is it's something that we at Orissa are definitely trying to do, to integrate
Hmm.
different aspects and
Hmm.
different stages of the game for an athlete, so that it's something that we can look forward to having
Hmm.
for our teams in the future, for the boys or for the girls, both sides, right from
Um,
school, college, and everything. Last year was a different case. This year will obviously be different, and it will keep
hmm.
evolving, as time
Huh,
goes.
huh, huh. Also, my two observations are that thankfully universities were part of the women's pyramid much earlier than they were part of the men's pyramid. For example, IGAS from Pondicherry, Mariappan, and everyone's who's been involved in Indian football knows the story of Mariappan,
Hmm.
how he rescued those girls, how he's developed. All of these girls are, some he's played a part of them. In the OWL, I was very interested to see that Kit runs a team in the OWL. KIIT runs a team in the OWL. So these are green shoots. And my also personal observation is that universities have the deep pockets to run teams which can play home and away, right?
Hmm.
They are more stable than a lot of corporates, for example, who wind up after one or two seasons, right? I might be wrong, but I mean, from what I've seen is that Kit, for example, is a huge promoter of sports, right? But starting from their own, from rugby to football to, so yes, we do hope universities get integrated, right? Now I'm going to go to another very interesting topic, right? And Abreshmina, you can also correct me. When we qualified, for example, for the Premier Division, right, in Delhi, we practiced 12 months a year only to play 4 games in the Premier Division. So did it feel like kind of a lottery? Did you feel hard done that, after practicing 12 months a year, and especially given that it was COVID time, there was a break between, the obviously it happens once a year for only for 4 games. Did you feel that all that effort that we put in for 12 months, right? And this is just from a personal, I'm not even talking about the whole ecosystem. Personally, did you feel that that effort that you put in for 12 months was worth it just to play 4 games, especially given that your team, the youngest team there, would eventually acclimatize by the second or third game? Like, that really gave them no room margin for error.
See, that's honestly a gap that is there in
Hmm.
the structure and general organization that we have. Because, yes, if a team has been practicing for 12 months and have been trying to, we arrange so many friendlies locally just to play so that we get some sort of at least some level of competitive play, right? We try to arrange so many friendlies, we played so many friendlies. So when in the end you just have 4 games to prove yourself, or to, just to prove to yourself also that all those 12 months that you worked, you could show it in matches.
Hmm.
And essentially it's unfair, it's not really possible to show everything in those, in just 4 games.
Hmm.
And which is why I feel even the girls did feel hard done by.
hard Hard done by, yeah.
Yeah, they did, because they played so many internal games, and then when it came to
So many
actual,
friendlies,
yeah,
almost 50 friendlies,
yeah, and then when
and
it came to actual games, it was just like, it just came and just went by. And it's like you miss out on one opportunity and it can cost you the rest of the tournament,
year, yeah, the year,
right? Yeah.
almost the year's
So
done, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just way too much pressure also, I feel,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
these teams, because these
Hmm.
girls are practicing playing, and then you suddenly just put them in a
Hmm.
position where
Hmm.
it's like the trials that we have, right? Where we
Hmm.
don't
Mhm.
essentially are not able to fully judge a player, because it's very difficult to judge a player basis just 1 or 2 days, right? They can have bad days. There can be so many different.
They can have a stomach ache, they can have a fever, they can
Exactly.
have
There's so many things
anything.
that can happen around them. There's so many components to it, and they just can have 2 bad days, right? But so it's
Hmm.
like it becomes very difficult. So essentially, trials are trials. It's fine. It's still fine. But my point is, if tournaments are also being like trials, it's a problem, and that's something that we need to solve, because it needs to be longer. It needs to be a space where they can fully flourish, they can express themselves, and they can go even experiment in their own game, which is not possible when it's such a short window.
Randeep, your thoughts on this?
Uh, no, I agree with. I mean, I completely agree with her because, like I've said in the past too, that scouting isn't just about a day or 2 days, 3 days. You know, there is a proper system to it, which is not followed neither by the men nor never mind the girls. So it takes time, it takes years, and that comes with a level of consistency at the coaching and the management level, at clubs and organizations, which again is very very shaky. So but if a coach has seen a player or worked with a player and has seen his evolution, then we're talking about a proper route having been taken there. Otherwise, these trials and stuff, like when we got Saloni for a month, I wasn't so sure if she was going to cut it for the kind of environment. Not the environment, sorry, that's wrong. She was perfect here, and we loved her. But for the team, she didn't quite cut it at that level. But we still gave her a chance at the IWL, OWL, and she did well. So we were really happy with her, and that is my cat. So you please have to excuse the meows. And
Don't ask for any excuse. That's
You're
lovely
talking
to
to
hear.
two, speaking to two cat lovers here.
Absolutely.
my
Yeah.
my wife let her in. I don't know what they're doing, but anyways, the thing is that it wasn't scouting, but we had a good look at her. We realized that she had some, there was some really good things about her, but perhaps our ambition at that point of time saw us looking at another player. But and I've been in touch with you, and I've always taken a check in on her and how she's doing and stuff like that, just generally because you keep your eyes on certain players and want to see them evolve. And when we created our team also, Crispin had already worked with the Odisha state team before I came to Odisha. And then when I came here, luckily the IWL happened in Bhubaneswar, so I was able to literally go and watch the games. And obviously the OWL happened before that. There was the Nandakishore Patnaik tournament that happened, which is a local women's football tournament. So I looked at a lot of players. So when we were making the team, I spoke a lot to Crispin and the kind of players he wanted and the team he wanted, and that's how we were able to work on. See, even though it was not 1 or 2 years, it was still like about 6-8 months, and it kind of took time again to gel. But yeah, we kind of put it together, and then we started adding players that we thought who would make the difference and also help these younger Oriya girls come to the fore, like for example Sweetie or a Shreya or Anju, and later of course Bala came in. And there was Pyari, who was obviously experienced enough at the national stage. And so, yeah, I think it takes time to build a competitive team. Then got to give it more time to grow and nurture itself into a competitive team, which is why I am very excited about to see how this year Odisha actually pans out, because the core of our team is still together. We still have Sweetie, Karthika, Pyari, Julie, Jasuda. You'll see Malti again on the left, that we've coaches really worked very hard to develop. She's a very exciting player. Manisha Panna is there, of course. So, and now we have an Indu, and we have Win. So Banya is still there from the last batch. A lot of players who have played and worked with the coach for over 2 years recently won the national games. They're gonna get the chance, and I really wish and I hope that people see a sort of trend in this. or people see and understand what we're trying to build over here, and try and utilize that. Governments are more supportive, just as the Odisha government is, which is like super super supportive to the efforts. So yeah, I think scouting and having a player on trial for 2 days tells you absolutely nothing. And you're right, especially with girls, for the multiple components that could happen or affect them on a particular day that we know of, that can happen even on a match day. And we've last year, when we were in the IWL, there was one match, a very, very important match, where two of our key players, we had to pull out from the first team at the last minute, just because, obviously they had their issues, and changed the team sheet at the last minute. So your entire game plan changes, and then how do you cope with that? Women's football is very different from men's football, and I think I'm lucky that I get to speak to Fida and Abreshmina and Aswati and others who have an understanding of women's football, who take a deeper interest into that. But it's not all women also. Let me put it that way. A lot of women also do not really understand women's football. They think about certain particular ideas and areas, and they think that's the way to go about it, which is what I was talking about a lot earlier. But that's not the case, and you get to realize that sitting on the fence as a neutral, you get to realize that.
That's true, and we faced these issues. We've had these issues when we were running a youth team,
Yeah, I can
suddenly
imagine.
one of the youth discovers it's her first time, and she doesn't have an idea, and then Abreshmina has to go explain to her, take her. She this girl got really scared, and I think you remember the incident, Abreshmina. She got really scared. She had no idea what was happening. Abreshmina put her arm around her shoulder. She said it's very natural, it's normal, there's not a problem. Then you ought to do this, and we were lucky. We had somebody like Abreshmina, somebody as polished as her, who could explain it to them, who could really put an arm around their shoulder, who could be compassionate, who could explain. But not everybody's lucky enough to have somebody like that
Yeah, yeah,
also.
for sure, for sure. I think one
So
of the things we were very focused on is to obviously grow towards a more women-centric governance at the club,
hmm,
and I hope that that's how
hmm,
it progresses, because
yes,
it puts, and also the Odia girls are, we keep talking about cultural a lot, all of us, and culturally every place is very different from the other. Odia girls
very.
again are very different from, they're not very outgoing, they're quite timid, and more than timid, they're more like, um,
Hmm,
yeah, timid is the right word, but at the same time they're very closed and very reserved. You really
hmm,
have to break into them to get something, out from them, if they're hurting, or if they're, because they're also very strong. A lot of these
hmm,
girls come from tribal backgrounds where they go through, a
hmm,
lot of difficulties. So the socioeconomic backgrounds make a massive difference to them, and they're not always very open to the idea of that. So when we had our team manager last year, she did a great job of managing, all the players very well. And of course, then the
hmm,
senior players who were very helpful uh,
hmm,
towards her as well. So it was all part of a learning process, and it works out. But then I think more women who get involved in sports, or
hmm,
women's sports and women's football, they need
hmm,
to show a bit more compassion
hmm,
towards the players and everyone, rather than just creating judgmental views of them, and taking that forward and saying that that's how it works. No, it doesn't. you you
hmm,
you're working with humans. Be
hmm.
compassionate, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you have no idea how everybody struggles every single day just simply to survive. And
Yes.
I think it's just a question of creating a very, and that is what creates a good environment, a healthy environment, where
Hmm,
people are compassionate to each other, people are
hmm.
understanding of each other's issues, and they actually go beyond just, हाँ ये प्लेयर है मेरा, ये खेलेगी, ये वैसा है, मैं इसके बारे में सब जानती है. It doesn't work like that, does it?
That's not right. Yeah.
Honestly, just as an example, I think Chelsea FC was probably the first club to include menstrual cycle and menstrual health in their training,
Hmm,
where they actually managed each and every player's menstrual health
hmm,
and set up training accordingly.
Mhm.
So obviously, because the cycles are obviously like that, and you have dates
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything, so they set up their training sessions accordingly. And I personally felt that that was an extremely brilliant step that showed how different women's football is actually from men's football, and how,
Mm.
and it's actually not that difficult to manage if you can put something like that into place. So yeah, I personally thought that was a great example.
No, last year, even like the first thing that I had the team manager and Gayatri, our assistant coach, do is draw up their period chart, or at least keep a track of that, so that
Yeah,
on those days, coach is first informed, and then we understand which player is available or not. You know, but again,
Excellent.
I think I do not. I obviously do not, do not understand the biologies of women as well. But the thing is that sometimes it could happen suddenly as well. So then
yeah,
then you're a bit taken aback. But we put a lot of thought into the practice sessions, practice timings, and obviously during competition as well. But I think it's important to give players their values worth, and understand them, and create your structure around them ultimately, because
correct,
what is football development, what is sport development? It's athlete development, right? You're basically
correct,
developing better athletes, developing better coaches, thus the sport grows and it develops. So I think yes, Chelsea is a great example. Again, clubs abroad are providing those examples for clubs here and around to pick up and learn from, and educate
correct.
themselves more on how to take women's sports forward. And I think what you said, of course, Chelsea's example is a great example. I think we also hope we did a week long nutrition and psychology course, which was a group course. I didn't want to go too deep into this last year, because sometimes you need to work with players individually as well as a group. At that time, we were trying to create a group, because we're
Yeah,
all very very new. The whole setup was very new, and those are things you can't take your eyes off. You need to keep yourself focused on that. I know a lot of clubs are looking at that aspect, are getting into that aspect. That's fantastic. I hope they never stop, but hope they grow it and make it better. And that's one thing that we've got to look at when we are developing athletes, and as such developing sports, women's sports, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm. And I just want to touch on a very important point you mentioned, Randeep. That's where you said, women in entering into football governance. I definitely agree that that is something that should be done, because from personal experience, right? I was helping this academy in Noida, and a really really forward thinking setup. Great, right? I
FC
was helping them
Noida.
set up. Yes,
Sorry,
FC
FC.
Noida set up their,
Right.
yes, set up their women's program. They were looking for a women's coach, and they turned heaven and hell over. They could not find one. They're looking for a woman manager. They could not find one. Right? At the end, I told him, and I told him this before. I told them, you want to develop women's football in Noida? I am all for it. But then you have to develop every part of the ecosystem, which
Yeah,
means developing women coaches, women managers, women masseurs, women physios, right? Women referees, even women referees. I'm saying,
of
because
course.
we need them. We need them, right? The thing is, we are at a point where women's football in this country is so nascent, and that's where the potential, that's where we can, all the three of the awesome podcast can see the potential, right? Can see the pathway. The thing is, we cannot just focus on developing the players, because
Yeah,
it has to touch all of these points, right? You
yeah.
cannot just develop players, because then you're again going back to men running the women's game, right?
Mm.
And I admire you for your understanding, because obviously you put a lot of research. But Indian football in general, right? And I say this today because I saw the amount of work the JFA had put into its new plan of integrating the leagues with the calendar. We don't have that sort of research yet,
Yeah,
right? We
yeah.
don't have that sort of in-depth analysis yet. So unless our men can probably go into that day, and you're done it. But Randeep, you're an exception. I can only say you're an exception, because I've seen a lot of people, I've seen a lot of men coaching women's teams and just continuously harking at the players. Do this, do that, do this, do that, without even considering for the fact that they might be going through something like this. So my point is, in the absence of such research, absence of such empirical evidence, we just have to develop the entire ecosystem because
Yeah.
and I know we were discussing this before show also, the cultural makeup of India and all of that. Even even though I was good friends with our girls, right, they were still more open with Abreshmina because
Yeah, of
they just
course.
simply found her more familiar to talk to, if that is the right word.
Yeah.
I was, yeah, I was friends with them before Abreshmina even met them, but their familiarity with her was something I could not replicate,
Yeah.
right? So I just want to add my 2 cents to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, anybody hoping to develop women's football, I think, can get a lot of insights from this show, right?
I think I'll tell you something. Sorry, just
Sure.
on that point, if I can add just a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When I came here, I did not, like I told you, I was also getting into women's football. I also didn't know that many people here, and I had to hire someone, and I wanted a particular hire which didn't happen last year. So I got to girls, from here, from Katak, and I literally, of course, I have 14, 15 years of football experience and I know how things work. But again, I've never worked with women before, right? And here I had already signed like this full squad, and I was still, working with them and trying to teach them everything. But I was like, I can't do this alone. So my wife would help me out a little bit throughout her work. But at the same time, I got these girls, and the first one didn't work out. The second one worked out perfectly well, and she learned from scratch over 1 year. So everything that I could do, I did with her support, and she was with the girls. So the Abreshmina role, she kind of filled perfectly well at that point of time, because I I was more like a father figure to them, more someone that they could look up to. And if there was anything that they needed, I would help them out, at an administrative level. But they are like that compassion level needs to come from somebody they build that association with. It's a relationship at the end of the day, and you know I mean, Abreshmina, you tell me, when you develop those relationships with your players, right? Was it just strictly a professional relationship, or even at a personal level? Did you ever try and interfere or get too much into their lives, or did you just take a step back and sit there and let them come to you and be helpful and more compassionate around them? What was it like?
Yeah, it was like I just was there always whenever they needed to talk to me. Because I also feel like, at least with most girls that I worked with, it was they were all teenagers.
Hmm.
So especially that age is when you cannot go behind the girls and tell them, you need to do this or you need to do that. You need to create an environment where they themselves gain that understanding that, okay, this is why I'm being asked to do a certain thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then they would come to you with questions, then you would answer them sensibly. They would take some information, they'd not be able to understand a few things, and they'll go forward with it. It's more like a it's more like that kind of relationship that you have. You don't really interfere into things because they have their own process of how they're looking at things, of how they will deal with things. But you need to be that person who they can trust.
Hmm. For
As long
sure.
as you are that person who they feel they can come to with questions, and you wouldn't judge them, or you wouldn't be you mock them for asking a stupid question.
Hmm.
They'll come to you with anything and everything. So it's more about creating that space, actually, than rather than going very aggressively towards trying to help them, because that honestly doesn't help.
For sure. And like, so say if you were working with senior players too, what would your to manage seniors?
So, yeah, when it comes to senior players, I think you can be a bit more strict around things, in terms of being more, You obviously are still that person who will understand them, who will let them come to you with questions and so on. But then with senior players, you also have to have that strictness in terms of the fact that, the reason why you are here is to build a career, is to build something real. So if you want to do that, you need to do these things. With seniors, you can try and implement that rather than the younger teenage girls. So yeah, with seniors, I feel it's more about, it's actually a better, to coin it better, it will be more well rounded strategy
Mm.
in terms of being both compassionate and strict, because I don't think with senior players you can be completely, they have to take you seriously. That's the major thing. It's they need to understand that you have some sort of authority as well, even if you are friends with them, and even if you are, laughing with them, sitting with them, eating with them, you still have your own responsibilities that you need to fulfill with them.
Mm.
So I think it's with senior players, it's more about that.
Nice.
And just to add my 2 cents also, because I've seen what Abreshmina does. I mean, I we would never treat them like children, because I've seen a lot of people treating under 13, under 15 teams with like children, right? But these are girls who are essentially and I say this, I don't know if how, these are girls, because of the community they come from, they are essentially already the key figures in their homes, right? Because the mother and the father are daily wage workers, they're going out in the morning, right? These girls would get up in the morning, make sure all of their younger siblings got ready, they made food for them, right? Cleaned the house, did all of the household chores, went themselves to school, came back, repeat all of this, right? Then if needed also added an extra helping hand, and that's where you can't really go and force the community and say don't do this, right? You can only say, listen, maybe this is too much workload on her, but you cannot really dictate the community on what they want to do. So in this case, when my girl's already, so she's handling an entire household by herself, she's already mature, she's more mature than you think. Don't go by her age, because she's doing far more things than what we were doing at that age, right? So what I saw is that even Abreshman, even you got that perspective after some time, right? When you spoke to them, you understood that hey, these girls aren't your normal run of the mill kids, right? They have this immense responsibility. So it's at that point in time you stop treating them like kids, and you were like, hey guys, listen, I know you guys have this pressure, but I also have a few points to make. I saw you take that approach with them, right? And which
Yeah.
I feel is is the right approach to take, because they were more responsive to that than with us going directly to their parents and saying, hey, XYZ is not doing this, right? Because the parent is like, I don't have time. The parent is simply given up, right?
Yeah.
So go on.
No, I personally also felt that, when you treat them as somebody who can understand things and who can make decisions, that kind of also helps them develop into better footballers, because they feel like they can make decisions on the field as well. Because if everybody around them is making decisions for them all the
Exactly.
time about everything, every little thing,
Mm.
they don't have the confidence to do the same on the field as well. So
Exactly.
if they are able to make some decisions on their own, they get that confidence and take it into the field too.
Exactly. Well
I
said.
always used to get, my mind was blown when they described their days to me, because I was like, how are you guys doing this? Like, how are you guys putting in so much effort, so much at home, and then coming and bossing it out on the field? Like, I always say hats off to you guys. Like, you guys are just, you guys are
I
something
mean,
special. Like, I
there
mean,
there are a lot of these stories all spread across women's football,
uh,
across the country, and especially,
mm,
oh, I would say especially, but yes, here too in Orissa, so many of the players, and I've been blessed to hear their
mm,
stories. blessed simply because they chose to share it with me, but
Hmm.
also heartbroken, and then also very proud that they were here practicing and playing and living a very different life than what they would be
Hmm.
doing back in their village. And
Hmm.
it was just God's benevolence that he gave me a chance, or she gave me a chance to work with these girls,
Yeah.
and I will never forget that, because when you were talking about, you know, that player, like, there were just stories swimming in my mind about so many of them here, and it's just something that I really hope takes off well, and improves the lives of so many of these girls who want to play football. Man, they just want to play football. Can you imagine how big a deal that is?
Yeah. Yeah, nobody's. At least I didn't have to fight to play football. I can't imagine it being a daily fight.
Yeah,
But like I said, that's where, and I remember Veer Das's quote when he said there are two Indias. What we discovered during our stint was that there were two Delhis. There was a Delhi in which we were living, and there was a Delhi completely unbeknownst to us, completely different to nothing we would ever experienced. It completely shattered our any bubble that we had in our head, right? Uh, so yes, I mean, what do you say? Uh, eye-opening experience, and honestly, I mean, to anybody who's watching this, if you can volunteer at your local club, because like Randeep said, the game costs money. If you can give even time, if you give your time, please do it. I think the world will be a much better place for it, right?
yeah.
I'm just coming to a fag end of the podcast quickly. uh Abreshmina, you've watched, uh, going back to the IWL, you watched Hobbs this year. They've always botched it in Delhi. This year they haven't, because I think they've seemed to have lost a lot of players to university again, right? Um, Hobbs always so dominant in Delhi, but always coming up a cropper at the national level. Do you want to take our viewers as to why that is?
The game, the kind of game that they have, it suits um, against teams locally. But when you go on a stage like the IWL, you need to have that technical superiority, that more technical expertise. B, just better understanding of the game. Here in Delhi, the game in terms of its understanding is actually not very developed. Pe- Here teams play quite random, if I may use the word. It's quite random actually, and it's not very well thought out in terms of game plans. While in IWL, teams come with game plans. They have ideas. They've seen how you play, and they come with strategies. So it's very difficult to completely override what the players have been doing and what the players have learnt just for just for a few matches for one tournament. So yes, while I do feel like maybe over the period of this tournament of the IWL, Hawks will learn a few things, because I do think that they have some players who are smart, who can take in that understanding. So I do feel like they have that opportunity where they'll get slightly better. But yes, I think overall, largely what happens is it's two completely different environments when it comes to Delhi
Mhm.
and the IWL.
Okay. And Randeep, which team from the IWL last year, apart from obviously Gokulam KickStart and Odisha barring, which team really, what do you impressed you? If I was to ask you that question,
Apart from Gokulam
Gokulam KickStart and Odisha FC. Yeah,
and
apart from these three.
Sethu, apart from Sethu as well. Sethu
Yeah.
was very impressive, and
Hmm.
Misaka was really impressive. I keep saying this. Watch Bangalore football. They're doing some good stuff there. I read that
Hmm.
story. As soon as I said that, I remember the story where those kids were taken in to do some labor work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
no, just look at the outside, the overall picture of it. Karnataka teams
Hmm.
are worth looking out for, because
Hmm.
they have. I'll tell you what they have. They have smart players. Okay, and
Hmm.
as much as I am into the romance of football as well, but if you want good players, you need technically and tactically
Hmm.
smart players going into the future. And the future that Karnataka football is focusing on is on tactically astute players. I'm looking at a bunch of youngsters, 16, 17-year-olds, who are who are watching international football, playing football very regularly. Their parents are so into it, they're getting their girls to play football. You have teams like Roots and Kemp. Um, Now you have BFC entering the field, and BFC, of course, I'm close to the guys there, and they want to take their time and develop their women's football. They just don't want to get into it, for the sake of it, which I commend very highly, which is great, because then you're giving that platform again. We're all looking for those platforms to play, right? So, uh, yeah, I followed the Karnataka Premier League quite closely. There were some very lopsided results, but there were some good results too, and there were some good games. There were some good players, yeah. And these are all 16, 17-year-old girls, like actual proper 16, 17-year-old girls who have the age to develop, and very soon they'll find themselves on the stage to perform. And I'm very, very interested and keen to see how well they do in the future. That's like, you know, uh, Kickstart aside, the other clubs are more exciting to watch at the end of the day, because I think that's where a lot of good footballers are going to come from. And I think
For
then
sure.
reliance on Tamil Nadu players is going to reduce little by little.
Huh. And like I said, we've seen a lot of good players and teams come through. Like you said, Misaka this year, I think Parikrama will also play IWL 2 expected, because they finished second
Mm.
in
They
Kemp
finished second,
FC.
yeah.
Yeah, Kemp FC is a relatively young team. Roots FC
Yeah.
almost pulled a surprise. They were second last year, but Roots FC
Mm.
did something smart. And Roots, I know the guys at Roots. Um, Very,
Mm.
very good vision. The guys always want to
Mm.
develop players. They had a bunch of homegrown women's team together for a long time, and then they lost again to attrition, college, etc., etc. They lost them. Story of every talented team that probably comes, and uh, probably self-referencing a bit here also. But yeah, I mean that's just life. um, but yes, I definitely feel Karnataka women's football is a ticking time bomb that's going to go off, and we're going to see a lot of good players that they're coming through. I just think it's a matter of maybe half a decade,
Yeah.
right? We're already seeing the first shoots, so that we're seeing the Rivkas and the Mythilis. We're seeing them come through. I still like I said, because and this way ecosystem comes, right? The ecosystem is so
Yeah.
solid. What we are hearing is that there's a three-tier league there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because at one point in time we used to send our 13-year-olds and our 14-year-olds to for on loan to a team called GRK Girls, who are now playing in the third division. So we know that there is a conclusive evidence that there is a third division team there. And GRK Girls, for example, run by one single guy who was very enthusiastic about his daughter playing football. So we
Right.
need more people like that. Kemp also,
Exactly.
I'm hearing,
Exactly. Yeah. It's
started
similar. Like,
more parents who's I know Rivka's father also was a part of the
likewise.
club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that there are these people who are I've always I've been in touch with Sini for a long time. I know that Sini, when you sit next to Sini in a meeting, you know that he's super vocal
Mm.
about a lot of stuff. Like, he's always asking, because we should not, as you're right, we should not equate men's football and women's football. We should not what do you say, we should not make that fallacy, right?
Mm.
We should demand what we demand for women's football in separation, not along with men's football. So
100%.
yes, yeah, and I'm also going to give a shout out to FC Noida. They've started. They're trying to do their level best here. Like I said, the challenges remain. Women's football, manager, women's coach, women's difficult to find. But despite the struggle, they're still going on. Mrida Education Society from Bhopal is another that I want to give a shout out to. Mrida are Subroto champions in their state.
Mhm.
Um, the girls, I think girls category is under 17, but they won it with a bunch of 14-year-olds. Lovely football, like keep the ball and play. Very, very
Mhm.
always nice to see women especially play that. I mean, in the men's game, it started a few years ago where some teams started keeping the ball, but the women's game is almost unheard of, right?
Right.
Until Gokulam started doing it at the big stage, and then everyone say, "Oh,
Mhm.
Gokulam can do it, so can we," right?
Yeah.
So so Gokulam really showed us the light. So Mrida,
Mm.
I know that they have now tied up because there's no ecosystem in Madhya Pradesh. I know they've tied up with Delhi United, and
Mm.
I have a guarantee if those players stick together, they might take the Delhi ecosystem by storm. So there are
Mm.
small shoots. There are there is hope that is creeping through slowly. There's
Yeah.
Kahani FC, Manisha
Yeah.
Shah,
Mm.
fantastic story again, right?
Yeah.
Of and they are very similar to us in and how they came about. So
So even
yeah,
even
I
here
mean,
in Odisha, I want to give a shout out to Nita Football Academy, which has been around for many years now. But slowly they've gotten some very senior and experienced people to lead and mentor the younger players. And this is we're talking about an academy which basically is under 18 and under 15, I think. And they're getting good players. They have a gentleman who's pretty much my mentor in women's football, ex India women's national team coach, and they have very interested owners like this gentleman, Mr. Subrat Das and Arun Parija, and they are very invested in developing through their foundation this entire system for women's football, especially for the tribal girls around here, not just here, everywhere. Then of course there is Sports Orissa, and Kit Case that is really looking to develop, because look at cases, when I say case it means Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, right? Their strength, and their uniqueness. So there are great opportunities for a lot of young girls coming through to play football. And like I was saying, I guess in these pockets, like what's happening in Bangalore, that needs to happen over here. So if you have to integrate schools and colleges to take part in a competition leading up to the OWL, so be it. But do it, because then you have a pathway leading up to that professional platform. Yeah, there's a lot of good work going on around there. Shout outs to all
hmm,
of them, and I hope they
yeah.
continue. And I
Hmm,
really do, whether I'm in football anymore or not, I really do hope women's sports, or women's football grows to the massive heights that it truly deserves. Because you look outside the world, it's like I said, it's the most is the sport with the highest growth evolution prospect that we're
hmm,
looking at currently.
hmm. I like I said, I think we look forward to it and just remind to everybody. It's not really a fair comparison, but number of women playing abroad four, number of Indian men play abroad zero. So the women are taking the chances. They're going abroad. They're doing it, and I really hope. I really hope this year we've seen Kiran and sorry, I forget the other name.
Kashmina.
Kashmina,
Kashmina.
Kiran and Kashmina go to Zagreb. Zagreb seems to be a very popular destination, but still, I mean, uh, we there are these girls are going out there. We've seen Jyoti now become a mainstay there. Jyoti is just banging the goals there, right? We saw Bala, and Bala Kamla were essentially the pioneers. Went to Maldives, went then to New Radiant
Yeah,
back in the
yeah.
day, right? And
Back in the day, and
back in
Bala was top scorer at New Radiant back
yeah,
in like whatever, this is
back
10
in the
years
day,
ago.
right? And at that time,
Yeah.
there was no Asian Women's Champions League. There were no
No,
systemic leagues.
no,
They
no,
just
no.
took a leap of faith. They just took a leap of faith, and they said, "Oh, listen, we're going to go." Right?
Yeah.
So great, really great. Like I said, I mean, and Indian football, women's football has a lot to thank. I mean, Bala and Bem, they've essentially held our women's football together for a long time. Like
We
we could
just
not have.
we just add a couple of names. Sorry, Kapur. I'm also gonna add Kamla's name. I'm gonna add Sashmita's name, because these, of course, due respect is always given to Che Bem
And
Bem
Bala,
and
yeah, but
Bala as well.
Kamla,
But
no.
these two players also,
I mean,
they've
Kamla
just
might.
Sorry, Kamla, I completely agree. She's an inspiration. Even when she was not in the national team, she was
yeah.
not playing anything. She still somehow found the,
She was
motivation
top
to
scorer of the
still go
Nationals.
and practice
She
every
was top
day
scorer,
and be
yeah.
as fit as ever.
Yeah.
And
It
last
was
year when she
amazing.
came to the OWL, she scored 20 goals in like 10 games or something, like 19 goals. And she's like, "Ye sab bacha hai sir, main inke samne kya khelega?" I was like, "No, you're doing fantastic. Just play." Today she's done her D license. That means she's going to get into coaching. Today she's
Wow.
helping her husband
That is the
with
best
his
news
coaching
I've
and stuff
heard
in
this
Manipur.
month. That is the best news
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard this month.
yeah,
Because
yeah. She's done.
because
She's just today they've done it. And so
because
Kamla, of course, is super inspirational. All of these girls, yeah, all
I
of these
feel,
ladies who led the way, they're super inspirational.
but Kamala, especially given her trials and tribulations, I think if she puts that knowledge to work, I think she might do something. And like I said, all of these women, they work in. I met Promesh when I went to
Honestly.
this thing, and I have Promesh at this age still she pulls one truck tire behind her and she runs through that field. I
The
said,
other
bro,
day I was watching. Who were they playing? They were playing uh, uh,
hmm,
KickStart, right? In
yeah,
Bangalore, just
huh,
yesterday, day before
yeah,
yesterday. And there's this girl from KickStart. I think she was also Manipuri, a bit
hmm,
stocky. Can't remember
hmm,
her name right now. And she came into Prameshwari, tried to bang into her, and Prameshwari just threw her aside, like, what are you trying to do? I have been at this game for like so many years. So I just get so happy and excited seeing these players still there, and I certainly hope what the game could not give them during their heydays can give them something better for the future, where whatever they find. So
hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and final question to Abreshmina. Um, Before we take some, we have some questions. We're just going to wrap up. Abreshmina, it's not been a good year. Obviously, we speak of the results. We spoke about the final aspects, but I have to speak about the results of the national team because we are obviously in December. It's been a difficult year. Yes. What do you think? I mean, because Olympic qualifiers, it's been a struggle generally.
It it has been, and I think it's because of the change of guard. I think Bala was there, and she was a very stable presence overall, and she was really carrying the team. So at this point in time, we obviously don't have a replacement for her. There are a few good players who are together trying to carry forward, but overall, it's going to take a bit more to force the issue per se. I still say that as a team, the national team is also developing in terms of their skill set and in terms of the way they want to play. But yeah, it is going to take some time because Bala was just too big a presence to immediately be forgotten.
Also, if I may add, the team had a bit of reliance on Bala, right? Especially after Kamla kind of hung up her national team boots, the team had a lot of, and Bembem also hung up her boots in sometime in 2016. So the team became overtly reliant. Obviously, you had the Pyaris come through, you had the Manishas come through, Indumati, but Bala's contribution on national team cannot be replaced so easily, right? It's I mean it's the same argument as the one in the men's game where we say who after Chetri, right? And for a long time we said who after Bala, but uh, I mean, thank heavens for Manisha Kalyan. Like what a year she's had. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you read her interviews, no, and when you speak to
she
her,
comes across a very
it,
smart player. She comes a very smart
yes,
player.
and it's actually so good to hear how much she is taking in from her experience playing in Europe. The way she talks about, I was reading an interview of hers today itself at Al Jazeera. Mansi had done it. That people in Europe have a better understanding of the game. They're tactically more evolved. In India, it's still lacking. Just to get that perspective and understanding that, this is the part of game that we as a country need to develop, I need to develop, and probably I need to take back to the national team. I think it's just so good to hear the amount of learning she's getting there, because I think that is really going to help her become a better player and actually bring that experience into the national team and make it better.
I think just that bit when we spoke to her, she said, listen, when I first came to Apollon, I could barely speak English. She's had to work for it. She's not been given anything on a platter. She was a substitute when she went there. She forced her way in, right? And she made a very telling statement, which I will always tell our kids, right? Or whichever cohort. She said, if you're getting it easy, is it really worth it staying there? This is the statement she had made about being in the IWL. She said, and that year Manisha had 21 goals and 11 assists in 14 games. It had become child's play for her. It had become, it wasn't floating her boat anymore. And I completely understand where she came from, right? She basically said, I want to test myself. And
Yeah.
that's what she
And
did. Yeah.
I personally think that was a great decision to make, because otherwise her rise, her bet, like in terms of her development, would have got stagnated.
Hmm. Hmm. Of course. And
For
yeah,
sure.
and we'll just take a few questions. Randeep, if you have any idea, someone's asked IWL to when?
I have no idea. I'm sorry. I have no
When I have no
idea.
idea. I hear
Uh,
March, I've heard Jan.
it probably will
Where
be, but again, like, would you want to really push a tournament into March and April? I mean, please, we suffered enough last year in Ahmedabad last year. They do. I don't think they want to go that route. But when you can't have it,
but you
like,
have a choice. Do your choice because you have the senior nationals as well. You have
yeah.
to accommodate that as well.
So
So you don't have a choice.
yeah, I guess then they'll better look for places or locations where at least it can be managed properly.
Hmm. Hmm. Everyone seems to have the belief that GKFC is struggling. Even Shaggy BC's last match, GKFC struggled with Hops. It took a spectacular point here from Anju to break Hops' defense. I agree, Shaggy B. I think they might be just getting into it. It might also be the hangover of the Asian Championship that they played. They're playing with a slightly different team, obviously.
Team, yeah, and not much
So,
time to gather themselves and really gel
hmm,
as a unit, which none of the
hmm,
clubs really have, to be very fair. I think it's but yeah, the
hmm.
GKFC is struggling
I
and
think,
still winning, so mark of champions type.
yeah, yeah, he's a marker champion. Like you struggle, you win, right? And I think Shaggy B again says, Odisha done a great job competitive despite getting no returns. Yes, of course. But I think we spoke about how much money some entity should have in pocket for a 5-year investment in a women's team, knowing there is no return. I would say this is upwards of one
I,
CR easily,
oh,
easily.
hang on a minute. He's
Right?
talking about 5 years. Once a year, if you really want to invest in women's football, once a year,
Hmm.
is-
I'm not even talking about salaries. I was talking about so for us the yearly budget to train 3 age group teams was 20 lakh, and we did not obviously get that, so which is why we shut down all that. But
Mm,
for us it was 20 lakh to manage 3 age group women's teams, under
mm.
11s, under 13s, under 15s. So from personal experience, this
But
is what I can
if
say.
we are talking about, say, a competitive team that's
Yeah.
going into the IWL or playing at the top league, and really aspiring to, with all the infrastructure available to them, with all the human resource available to them, with all the medical support and salaries and all of that stuff involved, and you do it right, like the right proper way, it's well over once a year in any case. So over 5 years, you're thinking almost, you know 3 4 times that number, easy. You
Yeah. Yeah.
listen, that's
And
the whole point. You either do it or you don't do it. But you must
yeah.
understand that it costs, because you have home and away matches. You traveling to
Yeah.
different parts of the country. You're spending money on their their physio equipment, their hotels, their transportation, their meals, all of that. So it's a lot of money and a good bit of investment that goes into it. Plus, you're paying them decent enough salaries. You can break that down and have your you can break that down and have your
Yeah.
slabs, but at the end of the day,
Mhm.
that's an expense. You're paying good coaches. You're paying an A license coach, he'll have his salary. You're paying BC license coaches, they'll have their salaries. You're paying 3 4 support staff. So
Mhm.
I thought, people shouldn't think that, yeah, it's an easy job. It happens like this, and this is how we'll keep it, because we've got to focus on the men's team. If you're going to do that, just run the men's team. No, don't run your academy's men's team. Don't get into the women's football part of it.
Yeah. True. Is that player Indumati? I'm not at liberty to say, but yeah, I can't. This is
Which
about the
player?
anecdote that I had mentioned.
Which?
This is
Oh,
about
okay,
the
okay.
anecdote that I mentioned,
Right,
the
right,
national
right.
team
Okay,
player. Yeah.
okay, fair enough,
Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah.
I'm not at liberty to say, obviously,
Mm.
because the player confided in me, so I
No, of
can't.
course.
Uh, yeah, BFC's women's team. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're filled with youngsters. And it's great to see that they're not running behind results. It's fine. Like
yeah,
they finished second
completely.
last, but it's completely fine, guys. It's completely fine. Right below 18, let's do away with the whole thing of looking at it from only from a result lens.
Mm.
Right? Did the player learn something during the duration of league? Did they pick up an extra a tool? Did they add one more tool to their locker? Did they evolve? Right? That's all we need. And you know so local leagues got planned with either don't. Yes, we've spoken about this. We've spoken about the need to essentially regularize the calendar. So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
uh, was the wisdom of Randeep ji? Yes, that's why we called him to on the show. Right? That's why
Thank you.
he's our resident expert. He's been there. He's seen it. He's obviously and he's sharing and he shared in great detail. I must really commend him. Gulam Toton is not at yeah. That is a big shocker because
Mm.
this man built. And Randeep, I saw you discussing with a handle on Twitter the other day.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw you discussing
Because
this. Yeah.
I keep a lot of interest. I take a lot of interest with in Bangladesh football. Chotonda is someone I completely respect and have a lot of respect for. I think Paul Smalley did a very good job as well when he was there in building the
Hmm.
academy structure the way they did, and the women's, the way women's football was growing under Chotonda, and we saw some really good players come through. In fact, we wanted one of their strikers, which again BFF being BFF, unfortunately, they wanted to stick with their WSL program, which didn't happen, and I lost out on the player. And yeah, but is will bringing him here to some help, bringing him here on what basis, like head coach of national
Hmm.
team or to a club
We
team.
have our own Gulam Rabbani Chotons. We have our own Gulam Rabbani
Yeah,
Chotons,
yeah.
right? So
Let's give
let's
them a
not
chance now.
let's
Yeah,
not yeah, let's give them a chance. Yeah, let's not do that thing where we take a piece of another jigsaw puzzle and try to put in our puzzle.
exactly.
That never
Yeah,
works out well, right? Astam's story. So yeah, like you said, like there are so many stories, right?
yeah. So
So
many
many
of them.
stories. Yeah, I mean, um, your state mate also wants to know your view on the God Premier League, but he already promised that he won't speak on, and we're going to let him stick to that promise,
Thank you.
right? Also, the God Premier League is in infancy. Let it develop
Let
for a
it
few years,
develop.
then
Yeah, yeah.
then let
At
us
least
speak
it's
for it.
come there. At least it's come. At least something's there. So that's a great start. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I hope
get
you caught
behind
our
it.
episode with Siddharth Deka, and I only have nothing but respect for Deka and gang who and what they're doing
Yeah, yeah, of
there, right?
course. Sid and I go back
They're
right to
trying
the
to.
start. Like when GCFC started, I was at Northeast United back then. So
Oh,
we
no.
go all the way back. We're still in touch, in fact. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. No. I mean, like I said, they came here. They also played the IWL qualifiers here.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
they came here. We had hosted them, right? So
Nice.
like I said, always always love people who have a genuine interest in developing football. Like I love those guys. They reached out to me. They keep saying, we didn't field a team in the. Oh, I think he might be Mintu Oy might be speaking about the women's league, which started this year. He,
Oh, right, right. Okay.
uh, yes, because Sid Decker did message me. He said we're not fielding a team because we
Yeah,
feel that we've not developed the players, right?
yeah.
And I really respect him for that point of view where he's saying I've not developed the players, right?
Mm.
So I'm not going to take credit for this, right? So it's very heartening to see that even in deep in remote pockets of the country, there are people who are not taking the short term approach, who are taking a long term outlook to developing football.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I think we could do with more of that
You
right
know,
here
I'll
in
tell
sitting in the NCR,
I'll tell you
right?
something. It's not like he's awash with money or the team is awash with money and investments
They're not.
and sponsorships.
They're
They're
not.
not. But the passion's in the right place. And
Hmm.
I only hope, like, whether it's Sid or whether it's other people like yourselves, and a lot of others I know who really want to get into football, find those right kind of
Hmm.
connections to get them interested in the game, to say, look, this is a developing sport. This has great growth potential and opportunities. Get into it now so that you can reap the benefits of it later. unfortunately nobody looks at the longer aspect of it, right? Unless you're a government, or you're
Hmm.
an organization that wants to do it for CSR or something like that. But if you're a private entity, you're always looking about your returns next day, and it doesn't work like that in football investment. So, but yeah, again, guys like Sid and all, I just hope they never stop, and there more
Hmm.
people stand up to assist them where that comes.
Hmm. Feel that hops as a yes, agreed, because we told you
Yeah.
a lot of the girls have left to university, and the universities kind of locked them up and said
Yeah.
don't come and play. So there's
Mhm.
nothing that we or them can do about it. Also, the good thing with hops is it's a very good pipeline. Girls keep coming from Alakpura and Mangali. The three
Mhm.
main centers in Haryana. There's Alakpura, there's Mangali, and there's Chuli Bagria.
Correct.
Chuli Bagria run by Vinod, Alakpura run by Sonika, and Mangali run by Narendra.
Yeah.
So, so these three centers always keep producing players. And why Abreshmina is slightly sad, because Haryana has a lot of potential when it comes to the fact that those girls get some of the best nutrition out of all the girls
Hmm.
in this thing. They have a strong sports culture,
Very. Yeah.
right? You take wrestling, you take any sport, right? They have such strong sports culture.
Mm.
But again, yet again, the curse of Indian football remains,
I know.
right?
And
So
I've worked in Haryana for so many years, so many years.
hmm,
Gurgaon,
hmm,
Rohtak. So I've seen Rohtak has such a crazy culture of sports. Uh,
what Bhiwani, Bi-
Bhiwani, Jind, all these places, so many places.
yeah, yeah. How is state league commitment make it difficult? Because a lot of these women, Roshan ji, can play for more than one club side. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Randeep, the rule is still that you can play for two and you can register for three, but you can only play for two
That's
clubs,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So that makes it difficult, especially if one of your state league teams doesn't qualify for the
Mm.
IWL. It means that you have to prove yourself, yeah, all over again. There's a whole, like, and all three of us have gone through this process. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. Uh, Me punching it hard in the end? No, no, I did not.
Well done. Yes,
Kamala Devi is a
please.
legend of Indian game.
No questions
Hundred
asked.
percent, 100%,
No
hundred
questions asked.
percent. There was a there was a time when and we told our girls you had to look forward to somebody, because it was again I who reported on that whole controversy with the seven people did not,
Right.
right. Kamala was the one who stood her ground. She stood firm. She said, I'm not. I'm not giving into this, right? And we gave our example to the girls, and they were immediately like, "Can we meet
Mm.
Kamladi?"
Mm.
Right? So that's the kind of example she's setting
Yeah.
for for the girls, right?
Extremely
AWCL,
strong. Strong.
uh, AWCL next year, next big thing, Indian team qualify group stage, very difficult, very difficult. I would say a very difficult proposition. This
Big
is
thing, I didn't understand. Big thing if Indian team
if
qualifies
Indian team qualifies from the group stage,
from the group stage.
he's
Okay.
saying yes, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult. The level of Asian football is also
Very high. We
rising
saw that in
extremely
the
rapidly.
we
There are
saw that
lots
in
of
the
countries
AFC
that
Asian
are
Cup and
already
all.
far
Yeah.
ahead of us.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
But then, I'm going to say one thing here because I'm really proud of the fact that the boys, are in the group stage. So
Hmm.
you never know. Why would you just rule it out immediately? Give them a chance. Who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows?
Hmm.
I don't think anybody
Hmm.
had Orissa FC sort of chalked out to make it to the group stages, but
No,
there they are. There
uh,
they are now.
I think money was on either Mohan Bagan or Basundara making it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
no,
So
but
you never know.
the kudos, the
To
kudos, like I said, yeah.
yeah, it's a great achievement, and I hope the club, I wish the club the best because I think they worked really hard to get there. So
Next year, lastly, next year will there be seven teams or one get promotion from IWL two for next year's IWL? We don't know,
no, no, I'll
but
tell
I
you.
think the yeah,
From what I
go
remember,
on.
what it was supposed to be like, just the. I think there's going to be one club promoted or two clubs promoted, and then from 24, 25. That if it's changed it because I haven't seen it so. recently.
Sorry, we lost you there due to poor connectivity, Randeep. If you could just repeat
No,
that.
no, sorry.
We lost you due to connectivity.
So
Yeah.
what the last conversation was that they're gonna have I think is it is supposed to be 8 teams, right? Two teams were supposed to be added. So once you have 10 teams, 25, 26. But I don't know if that's changed now. I'm guessing it's still gonna remain the same.
All right. We what we are also hearing is that by year four it's going to be a four-tier league.
Yeah, it's gonna keep expanding for sure. So
Mm,
these well, it's on paper. Let's see it happen in reality.
mm, mm. All right. Yes. I think that brings us to end of very. I've taken up way too much of Randeep last time, but
You
he,
said
as you
45
can see,
minutes.
yeah, yeah. It's double. It's
It's my
double that.
fault
No,
actually.
this is how injury.
No, no.
No, no. No, see, if you see in injury time, you know that we like people
We
who
tend to stretch.
who go into the depth of things. We do not discuss anything at surface level. We have to go into it. We have to do a PhD and we have to come out the other side. We cannot
Uh,
have
that,
these
that's why
normal
it's
discussions.
that's why it's called injury time. Like
Yeah.
we're almost at penalties now, and I don't want penalties.
Ah,
Please, you know I have a
yeah.
bad relationship with penalties.
Definitely.
Oh, there was some dukh, dard, pida
which I,
in
which
that.
Bad.
which I hope my girls wipe out tomorrow. But let's see, fingers crossed. Like really.
Let's see. Fingers crossed. Like I said, I think I smell a victory. I'm not going to jinx it,
Do
obviously.
Don't jinx
not.
it all.
I will come to Delhi and beat you if you do not do that. Okay. Let them.
Maybe I
I
did.
spoke to
Maybe I jinxed
Crispin.
it already. I don't know.
No, I
I
spoke to
don't.
Crispin. He's
Stop,
very good.
Otto.
He's
Stop
very
right here.
Yeah.
positive. So let's see. Yeah, it's gonna be a good game because again, I rate
Hmm.
respect for him. Both tactically very good good
Okay.
game. It's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Going to be a heck of a
Yeah.
game between two of the strongest sides, not just this year but last year as well. Let's see. Let's see. Quickly, we're just going to end with predictions. Randeep Da for the IWL title.
Oh my
I'm
God.
not saying this. Yeah, don't make me do.
Okay. Okay, I'm not going to. Abreshmina.
No, come on. I mean, it's not about jinxing it as well, but it's just
Yeah,
the start.
Abreshmina,
Let's
why don't you start? Why don't you start?
no,
Someone's
no.
actually
I'm
said
just saying,
Arkada
Otto.
jinxed it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And and it's not even about right now. It's not even about the title thing. It's not about jinxing it also.
yeah,
But I think let's do another show after like we're halfway through, and then we can talk about who will take the
yeah,
title.
yeah.
I'm going to say it. I feel it's going to be one of Kickstart or Odisha because I watched Kickstart in Delhi and they were super strong, right? Um, I still can't. I'm kind of on the fence between both of these teams. I need to see these teams play each other for me to really say. Uh, but yeah, Abrishman, do you want to take a stab at this, or do you also want deep from mid
No,
season?
no. I will wait for mid-season, please.
See, this is the
It's
first time in 4 years, Randeep, that we haven't really predicted because it really shows that we aren't really sure.
Yeah.
We aren't
It
really
will
sure.
take me half a season to let you know who I think can
Yeah,
come out from.
because the last three seasons we've said Gokulam.
Yeah, yeah.
Last time also we said Odisha FC potential finalists, but we're giving the edge to Gokulam. Only Sandeep gave it to Odisha, but we said Gokulam for the last 3 years, and that's happened. But this year, I'm not going to say Gokulam, right? Because I felt it in my bones.
so don't say
You know,
anything.
I'm not going to.
Don't say anything.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, this was great fun, guys. Great fun.
Yeah.
Please watch the show and do like, share, and subscribe. And